Well, friends, this will be a fun and ideally an enlightening conversation. For those of you that come into the space building out NFT and Web3, it might just be standard. You're jumping in and you think to yourself, well, we're going to go non-custodial, right? We're going to self-sovereignty. But early on, that wasn't necessarily the thought across the board. A lot of the thoughts were around how do you make this easy? And so my guest today, he and I are going to talk a bit about that as we were having this conversation before we went live. So happy to have you with me. And of course, it's good to interview you. Each year we do NFT.NYC and we love having you come speak. Can you please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about Blockparty?
Thank you so much, Ian, and thank you so much for having me. This is now multiple NFT.NYCs that I've been a part of, and it just keeps getting better. So what an honor to be here. I'm Vladislav Ginzburg, CEO of Blockparty, and let's get started.
Let's get started. So can you give us kind of comic book one, right? So what was the entry into what we're now calling Web3 and the NFT space? Because that might give some context for why there's been a change of focus and structure in terms of how you're thinking through things now.
Absolutely. Being early in the NFT space, getting involved in 2017, the vision was there because it was crypto native folks thinking about things that mattered to other crypto native folks, but also thinking about how you scale it to non-crypto natives that we expect will enter the space once they understand the value proposition of Web3 and NFTs and blockchains. And, we're all business people and we're looking at things like total addressable markets. And we're all looking at things like how many users, user growth, what does that look like? And frankly, that crypto native crowd is still fairly niche in those years and still, and particularly if you go back to the latter half of 2018 and the earlier part of 2019, myself and other founders are kind of laughing about how sometimes we have to drop like the word blockchain out of our pitch decks because the mainstream is at that point was kind of like, oh brother, that thing from like late 2017.
Right.
And those things, I think, influence how we think about making Web3 products usable to a wider market, to mainstream adopters.
Yeah.
And I think where lots of companies find themselves is how do we serve the crypto native audience? How do we build products that matter to them without alienating the mass market and new entrants into the market? And the slippery slope. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, you said new entrants. And one of the things I didn't want to miss is the realization we have now 5 years later compared to what we had thought about new entrants. And so I'd love for you to speak to this, and you can keep going on what you're saying. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but let me finish adding this. I think there was a thought when we got started, it was going to take a year or longer to get somebody full degen, right? Like it's going to take so much hand holding and so much time. So let's make it easy. But it hasn't been that way. So can you, when you talk about the new entrants, can you speak to the reality of how long it takes for people to get onboarded and fully immersed in the environment, therefore capable of not only having a non-custodial wallet, but being self-sovereign, handling it all, compared to maybe what we had thought would happen in terms of the slow progress of onboarding folks?
Wow. Yeah. Right in the money. That's where the thought is. It's the learning curve for new entrants. How long is it going to take a new entrant to go, full degen, but really understand what it's all about? And I think the danger is to think about things that new entrants need to shorten that learning curve. Better UI UX, better scalability, fiat on ramps, and that's a very specific build. And if you really go far in that direction, two things happen. Number one, your core crypto native audience is like, well, those things don't really resonate with me. Custodial wallets, in fact, are quite the opposite. Right. And now the new entrants that you're building for certainly some of them will take a look around and say, well, this is cool, and then go on with their lives. But then some are like, wow, this is amazing. And so often in Web3, we talk about community and what the role of community is and how important community is. But let's drill down to what that actually means. That means you're crypto native, or that community is really welcoming of the new entrants that are being intentional and really putting in the work to understand this space. And so what we thought might be a year plus learning curve for a new entrant is being really shortened down to a matter of weeks or months, because the community of crypto natives are very welcoming to those new entrants that put their money where their mouth is and really put in the time and effort. And they coach them up so fast that even if you are building for the new entrants that stick are becoming crypto natives, and that crypto native community world audience is growing very quickly.
What does that mean for Blockparty and companies like Blockparty in terms of, you did things a certain way, you built out certain infrastructure? I mean, early on, Blockparty was tickets and only tickets. And so obviously there's different focus that change over time with any of us entrepreneurs as we build out things that don't exist. But what does it mean in terms of new information? Okay, people can onboard quicker. Okay, self-sovereignty is as important to the end user as it is to the builders. Therefore, these are some changes that we need to institute. And then how are you navigating some of those changes?
For sure. Going back into those very early days with tickets, then eventually custodial marketplace for NFTs, you are building certain things, but like ticketing is about access control, right? So you kind of require that custodial marketplace, because you have to know who's there and that they belong there and that they're going through a certain place. And I'm not really sure where decentralization super matters in that particular process. But as we think about where we came from and where we're going, and we are looking at our core customer that is a crypto native, that cares about these things. So how do we deliver products for them that matter? And those are the things that did matter in ticketing and matter today. On-chain royalties, that matters. Programmable royalties, residual royalties for tradable assets, that stuff matters. Self-sovereignty really matters. Self-custody really matters. So how can we focus on those things? And instead of necessarily building products for new entrants, well, why don't we focus on educating the new entrants while we build products for crypto natives?
Right. So when it comes to established relationships with users, is there a process by which you focus on transitioning people that were used to a certain way of doing things? Or is it easier just to focus on serve them, but let's focus on onboarding these new folks? So how do you attack what's existing and take care of that to a certain extent, and then what you need to do to scale? Sure.
First pop up there is many folks are asking for it, right? So it starts by listening to the customer. We'll often see that who was a new entrant 3 months ago is talking about, well, what about minting for my own contract? And starting to ask sophisticated questions. So I think you really start with the folks who are asking.
Yeah.
And then following that, we can look at the ones that are being the most engaging in the community, because we can figure that they're going to ask pretty soon. And so I think you kind of start with who is and who are the segments that are most likely, that are already on the path. And then we ask ourselves, what can we do to accelerate that path? What I have found is that getting somebody on the path, that part we might stay away from, because if things like self-sovereignty and things like and these crypto ideals are, you can't coax somebody. It's really you can lead a horse to water situation.
Right. Yeah.
And those are things that a person really needs to decide for themselves that they're interested in.
Yeah.
But once they do, providing the resource, providing the education, providing just a helping hand to the open metaverse.
Yeah.
The same way that many of us that are in this space can probably think of a person, an organization, a resource, a something that helped us along when we, who have been in the space for years, we're like, wow, this stuff is really powerful. Now I want to learn more about it. I can think of the person or the organizations that helped me along. I'm sure you can as well.
Yeah. When you think about self-sovereignty, how do you think it impacts the creators compared to the collectors? And do you think there's a greater advantage for those that are creating these NFTs, as an example, or those that are collecting them? Or do you think it's an equal benefit to both?
It's an equal benefit to both for sure. I can certainly think through value propositions in both cases.
Right.
However, to answer your question, I do think that self-sovereignty in this space does prioritize the creator first. And I think it does so intentionally. We call our space Web3, right? I think that Web2 was certainly powerful for creators. I think the ability to get millions, if not many millions of eyeballs on artwork or creation on Web2 platforms was certainly a major upgrade for the creator. But I do think the creator came second to the consumer of content.
Yeah.
I think of Web2 as like a golden age for consuming content. I can consume so much free content across social media platforms, across YouTube. Like, there is not content that I don't have available to me as a consumer that is more than like 10 seconds of good Googling away.
Right.
So I think the consumer of content, of creation, was really the prize pony of Web2. And also there's a lot of benefit for the creator. And this is a lot different, right? Because I think that self-sovereignty of owning the content that many millions get to see, but also getting to monetize it, puts the creator first, which is not to say, again, that the collector, the consumer, doesn't get a lot of benefit from self-sovereignty. Because when it comes to creation, when it comes to selling artwork, when it comes to selling content, most questions about how to build value there get answered by thinking about the culture of collectorship and being able to self-sovereignly own and collect and own and truly own an asset that is natively digital is a game changer. And I think it's a big win for the collector.
Well, I appreciate you having this conversation with me because, we took a little bit of a pivot, right? It'd be easy to talk about what you're going to talk about at our event, right? Bridging physical and digital NFTs and promote the talk, or just talk about how amazing Blockparty is. And here's the new changes. Like, these things are easy to do in these contexts, but you're one of the men that's been with us over the course of time. And so I think it's good for me to take time just to ask you more deep questions as you're been transitioning, making different changes. But as we wrap up our convo on NFT.NYC, what should people be aware of? Like, if they've never been, what might they want to think through when they're coming into an environment with 10,000+ people? Of course, you were there with us last year as we had this explosive growth from a couple hundred attendees to about 5,000+. You want to give any insight to folks that are tuning in right now?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for the very kind words. I would love to shill all about what Blockparty's doing, but I think I just did, right? And the questions that you've asked me and the way that we think about this space and whom we intend to serve, it's enough to say that our intention is fully around building and creating things that matter for decentralization and helping more new entrants get along that path. To me, NFT.NYC represents a key step along that journey.
Yeah.
Because not so long ago, NFT.NYC was really the only place that people were getting together and talking about this stuff. And I think that ethic still permeates throughout NFT.NYC, even though it's grown from 500 to 5,000 to 10,000 plus attendees. My advice to attendees of NFT.NYC are to search out that spirit of NFT.NYC and filter out the signal, which NFT.NYC has always provided, with the noise that comes along with the growth of this tentpole landmark NFT event into 10,000 plus. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of big celebrities, influencers, look here, flashy that. I can tell you from NFT.NYC last time, and I'm sure it's going to be the case this time, that the spirit of NFT.NYC, of growing what the space is all about, is very much there. My advice is maybe look past the flash and look for the builders and find out where this space is going, because we're only just getting started.
That's a great place to land. Vladislav, thank you so much for jumping in. We are always grateful to have you be one of the speakers at the event. And we love what you've built at Blockparty and what you're doing, and certainly anticipate great momentum moving forward for you. For those that watch this conversation, thank you for your attention. We look forward to